Technology has made composing easier than ever before. Notation apps give us really powerful tools that help us create music in minutes. You can write down your ideas and hear them played back with beautiful, stunning virtual instruments. This allows your imagination to run wild because even if you can't play an instrument, you can write for it. This is what enabled one of my favorite currently living composers, Shane Jones, to write for guitar. Shane is a visual artist from Australia, and after harnessing the power of notation software, he's written many hours of beautiful music for the guitar, much of which is above his playing level or his ability level on the guitar. And it's really thanks to Musescore that Shane was able to let his imagination flow onto the page. Musescore is one notation program you can download for free, and it's got all of the tools you need in one place. The biggest barrier people face is the huge learning curve that comes with learning notation software. And that's what I want to help you overcome. By learning the basics and the essential keyboard shortcuts, you can learn to use Musescore and compose or write down music really quickly. Even if you don't want to compose, the actual act of just writing music down is extremely beneficial. It's extremely helpful for your understanding of music. Imagine learning to read and speak a language but not write the language. Why not be creative as well? It's super fun and it allows your unique identity, your unique personal creative identity to shine. This tutorial video will be broken down into 3 parts: creating your score, entering notes, and formatting. Downloading Musescore is really easy. I've provided a link in the video description below, so please check that out. And it's, as I'll just remind you, it is a free, completely free app or program to download. I will point out that Musescore is only available on a computer or laptop. It doesn't come as an app for your phone or tablet. I do have a free notation app that I recommend, and you can check that out in the provided link. So first up, once you've downloaded Musescore, open the program. You'll be taken to this window here, Scores. So we're going to create a new score by clicking on that. We want to then add our desired instruments, and we can search for that in the search bar. So we're going to go for classical guitar. And if you type in guitar, you'll see there's lots of different types. So click on your instrument, press the arrow button there to add the instrument to your score. And we're also going to add tablature in as well, because there's a really easy way, and we'll look at this later. There's actually a really easy way to copy notation into tablature or copy tablature into notation. So we'll add them both in. Why not have the best of both worlds? Then we'll click next. And here we can customize our key signature and time signature and other things, tempo, the number of bars we want, the title, the composer, the subtitle. All of these things can also be changed later on as well. But let's go ahead and try some of these out here. So if we want to go to the key of D major, for example, or if we go to the relative minors, we click on minor, there's B minor. Let's try D major. Let's change the time signature to 3/4 time. Let's call this Prelude by yours truly. And we click on Done. So now there are some other key components I want you to be aware of. 2 key things to notice are the toolbar up at the top here and the palettes on the left-hand side here. These are really handy because a lot of the things you need that aren't covered in this video, that aren't covered with shortcuts on the keyboard, you can find them in the toolbar or in the palettes. There are literally hundreds of options, many of which you'll probably rarely use. So for this video, we'll focus only on the most important ones that you need, the most essential ones. We'll also learn the shortcuts for these, which will save you much time and make the composing process much smoother and more efficient. So back to the key signature and time signature. So if you do want to change those, have a look here in the left-hand side. There's a key signature in the palettes and also a time signature in the palettes. So that's where you can change. You can just simply drag and drop that in and change the time signature, the key signature or the time signature, and you can press Command or Ctrl Z to undo if you make a mistake or you want to go back. And same with the time signature. If we want a weird time signature, what have they got here? Nothing too weird. 4/8. We don't really use that much, but there you go. Just drag and drop it in 4/8, and then we can Ctrl Z or Command Z to undo, go back to our original. So let's get into entering notes. So this will probably be the largest portion of the tutorial. So we're going to look at things like adding pitches, changing rhythms, changing voices, and those types of things. So to add pitches into Musescore, the first thing you want to do is press N on the keyboard. That's our note input option. So press N, then you can simply press the letter of the note you want. So if you want a D, because we're in D major, we press D, and there we go, we get our D. And now notice how the next beat, the second beat of the bar has been highlighted. So now if I press another D, that's going to enter that in the second beat. And then if I press an E, now on the third beat there, it's put that E in. So that's the quickest way to enter a pitch. You can also use your mouse or your trackpad and enter those in manually as well. Once you've entered some notes in, you might want to change the octave or the register they're in, because notice how Musescore kind of put this in the default, like those notes I entered, the D's and the E there, they're within the stave. So, you know, like the second string D and open E, first string. But if we wanted those, let's say, down or up the octave, there is a shortcut for us to do that. So you can do this the slow way. So if we press the left or right arrow keys here, we can go backwards or forwards through the notes. So I'm just pressing left and right on the keyboard and the left and right arrow keys. So I've pressed it all the way back to our first D there. So if we want to put this up or down an octave, we just have to hold Command and press the up arrow. That will transpose the note up an octave, or we can press down and that will transpose the note down an octave. So that's the quick way to do it. We can also do it the slow way, which is by not pressing Command and just pressing up like that. There we go. So that's up an octave, but much better if you hold Command and just press down or up. Okay, so that's how you can change octaves very rapidly using the shortcut. And I'll point out on Windows, it's Control up and down instead of Command up and down. Next thing you might want to do is change the rhythm. And this comes in two categories. You can change rhythms either before or after you've added your notes. So if you want to change rhythms before you put in your notes, let's look at that. So we'll go over to the second bar, it's empty. So here I'm going to use either the keys Q or W, and that's going to swap note values. If I press Q, it's going to half the note value. So you can see how up in the toolbar, I pressed Q, I press it again, I press it again, and it's going from quarter note to 8th to 16th to 32nd and so on. So we can use the Q button to pre-select the rhythm we want. That will half the note value, go faster. And we can use the W button to double the note value. So the W button, if we're starting on the quarter note, I press W, we go to a half note, and I press it again, we go to a whole note. So Q and W, very handy if you want to change the rhythm before you start inputting notes. So let's say we want eighth notes now. I'll press that. I'm still in note input mode. So if I press D, we should get a D eighth note. Press it again, 2 D eighth notes. If I press Q, I'll get 16th notes now, half the value. Let's do 4E, so I'll press E 4 times, like that, and now we're on the third beat, and let's say we want to put a quarter note in, so I'm going to press W twice there to go back to the quarter notes, and let's make that an F, or an F sharp, because of the key signature. So that's how we can alter the rhythm before we put notes in, but if we want to change the rhythm of notes we've already put in, that can also be done too. So what we have to do first is get out of note input mode. So we press N to get out of note input mode, and then we can select either with the mouse or trackpad, or we can use the left and right arrow keys. We can select the notes that we want to change the note values of. So let's say we want to make this D into a quarter note instead of an eighth note. Now I can simply press W to double the note value of that note, and that's done. That's been done. If we wanted to make it into 16th notes, I'll press Q and I'll press Q again, and now we have a 16th note. We've turned it into a 16th note, therefore we have more time in the beat to add more notes in, and we can just press the right hand key there, right key, to select those rests and add notes if we want to. So just remember, with changing rhythms, the Q and the W keys are really handy. So this gives us a pretty good grasp of adding a single line, like a melody or a single line of music. But with a lot of music, especially guitar music, or if you're writing for piano or other instruments, polyphonic instruments or harmonic instruments that play chords, you'll probably be adding notes on top of each other, otherwise known as intervals. So to do this quickly, you press Option and the interval number above that you desire. So, for example, if you want to add a third above a note, so let's say we're on this D here and we want to add a third above, we're going to press Option and then 3. And that adds a third above. If I want to add another third above that, now notice how the selection is on the F sharp, on the third, on the newest note I've just put in. So if I want to add another third above, I'll press the same thing, Option 3. If I want to add a fifth above this A that's been put in, I'll press Option 5, for example. And then if I want to adjust that a little bit, let's say I want to make that C sharp into a D, I can press the up or down keys. So I can press up, and that'll chromatically alter the note up to D there. So I just had to press up twice. I can also go down just by pressing the down arrow. And we can also use our octave trick. If we want to press Command up, we can put that note up or down an octave as well. So that can really help us create chords and intervals very rapidly, which is very, very handy. You can save many, many minutes, and compounded over time, you save many hours when you know these shortcuts. So once we have all of these notes in, we've got 4 notes on one beat. Usually those notes will be assigned with different voices. So this is like separating the notes into parts like soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. Doing this allows you to change the rhythmic value of each individual note of an interval or chord. So guitar music is very often in either 2 or 3 voices, very rarely just in 1. So mostly guitar music's in 2 to 3 voices. And we can see the issue here with this chord, that all of the notes are in the same voice. So if I play this, that chord is going to sound very staccato. It's going to sound very short. And I can I can show you that right now. All right, so did you hear that really short chord? Well, let's do that again. If you want that effect, then that's fine, but we might want something a little bit different. Obviously, we can make that whole thing into a quarter note. So if we make that whole chord into a quarter note by pressing W, that's one solution. But we still want this chord to have the representation of soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, especially the differentiation between the bass and the melody. That's really important. We really want to see the distinction between the voices, especially between bass and melody. So at minimum, I would recommend doing this chord, separating it out into two voices. So how can we do that? There is a shortcut for that. So if we press the note that we want to change voice, let's select that note, and then we press Command, Option, and number range from 1 to 4. So the default voice is voice number 1. So typically fourth voice is associated with the bass. So let's change this to the bass voice. So we're going to press Command, Option, and 4. And now you see that that's been changed. That D that I selected has been changed to voice 4, and you can see that up in the toolbar that's selected, highlighted as fourth voice. So now what we can do is change the note value of that bass note. So I can press Q or W. If I want a shorter bass note, I press Q. If I want it shorter again, press it again. But let's make it a longer one. So I'll make that D into a half note by pressing W to make it a half note. So now we have a half note bass and 3 quarter note melody notes, or like a second voice above it. So there's a really nice distinction between the voices. This shortcut can be done in two ways. So you can do this either before or after adding pitches. So I showed you after, so I selected the note first and then changed the voice. We can also do this before. So if I go to the second bar here, I press N for note input. Now I want to change voice. I'm going to do the thing. So I'm going to press Command, Option, 4. Now I've got fourth voice. I'm going to press D. And it's actually, notice how it's actually put it down an octave. It's put it down into the lower, the open D fourth string for us, because it kind of remembers that the last fourth voice note was that one there. We're in note input mode. The color has changed from blue to purple, indicating that we're in the fourth voice. So that's how you can change voices before you input a note. You can also do this from the toolbar up the top, and by default, you'll only have 2 voices as an option. So if you want to enable the third and fourth voices, you can click this gear icon, scroll all the way down, and then you want to make sure that these eyes are open. So open these eyes, voice 3, voice 4, and they'll appear in the toolbar there for you to use that way. But it's much slower to select a note and then press that. It's much faster if you know the shortcut. Next is a funky little rhythmic detail that I want to discuss, because it can cause a great deal of confusion when you're wanting to add a triplet. How do you add a triplet? So the way to add a triplet is to press Command 3. So if I press Command 3 here, it's going to turn that note into a triplet, or any similar derivative of the beat like that. You can also use the toolbar again here, and it actually shows you the shortcuts there. So if your note's selected and you press octuplet, heaven forbid if you use that, octuplet in the beat there, well, there you go, that's done. Or that's in addition to the triplet. We actually did a triplet octuplet there. So I pressed undo couple of times to take us back to our quarter note. So let's do that again, octuplet. There we go. So you can choose that way as well in the toolbar. Next up, I want to talk about a very, very handy way to save time when you need to select multiple notes or groups of notes or whole measures or even an entire composition. And there are reasons to do all of those things. So there's three main types of selection that I want to take you through. We can select individual notes, groups of notes, and entire measures. So to select individual notes, we hold Command and we have to get out of notation input. So press N if you're in note input, it's not going to work. Get out of note input, then hold Command and then simply select the individual notes you want. Why is that handy? It enables me to, let's say I wanted to delete these notes. I can now just press delete and there we go. Those notes are gone, but it's left the chord that was below that original melody line underneath. I can press undo, Command Z, Control Z to put the melody back. We can also select groups of notes. So if we hold Shift, so I click on a note and I hold Shift and let's say I want to select that much, I can do that and then I can copy that and I can paste it. That's extremely handy because that allows you to copy and paste selections of notes and use them, recycle them, reuse them later on. And then the final selection type that's really handy to know is entire measures. So if you select the first and last measure that you want to choose from, let's say I want just these three measures, I can click on the first measure, measure 1, and I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click on measure 3 and then I get the entire measure like that. So it's similar to, Shift is a kind of a magic button because you can kind of do individual, like a range of things. Oh, it's not working now. You can do a range of things like that. So you can select a specific range, or if you want specific measures, you can hold Shift and select measures, and then you can zoom out here, and that's just pinching like any document or anything. You can select the first measure. Let's do this, measure 1. I hold Shift. I go to the final measure. Whoops, I missed it. So select measure 1, hold Shift and select that. And then we have all of the notation, the whole piece selected. And if I want the tablature, I'll hold Shift again and select the last note, the last measure of the tablature as well. And the entire thing is ready to delete if you want, or copy so that you can paste it into extra bars that come later on, or whatever you want to do with it. But it's an extremely handy tool because music is typically very repetitive. So if you're not copying and pasting like that, it's going to be agonizingly slow. So make sure you're taking advantage of those shortcuts. With Musescore, we can also create tablature, and it's an incredible feature of notation software like Musescore and most other notation softwares out there. You can actually copy and paste notation into tablature, or vice versa. You can copy tablature into notation. This can make your scores more accessible to a wider range of guitarists and also make your music look more pro. What you have to do is simply copy and paste the entire score, whatever music you have, by what we did earlier. So we've only got 3 bars here, so we're going to just click on bar 1 and then hold Shift and click on bar 3. I'm going to then press Command or Control if you're on Windows, C, and then I'm going to paste that. I'm going to click down into the tablature and I'm going to paste that into the tablature, and there we go. It's done it perfectly. So that's actually very, very playable on the guitar, the tablature as it is. You can also do that the other way around. So if we select, let's say we started with tablature like this, I can select that, I can copy that, and I can paste that into the notation. Bingo. That's really, really cool. So that kind of flexibility to go from notation to tablature or tablature to notation is just very, very handy. And as I said, it really helps to make your music more accessible to more guitarists, the ones who prefer to read tablature or the ones who prefer to read notation. Why not have the best of both worlds? Now, if you want to edit the tablature, which is very possible because sometimes the tablature fingerings won't be correct. They'll put notes, on the wrong string, on the string that you don't want. For example, if we wanted to put this D on the 5th string, 5th fret, how do we do that? It's actually quite similar to the notation input. So we press N, then we press the up or down arrows to select our strings. So we want to go to the 5th string, so second from the bottom. And then we press the number that once we're on the correct string, we press the desired fret number. So fret number 5, and there we go. So I'll press N to get out of notation input. I'm going to select that 0 and I'm going to delete it. So now I've got the same note, the D, but I've put it onto the 5th fret of the 5th string. So you can change the tablature fairly easily using N for note input and then the up and down arrows to change strings and then the desired fret number. Now we're on to the final part, formatting. And there are just two basic shortcuts that I want to go through in this tutorial when it comes to formatting. They are system breaks and page breaks. So system breaks are where you've got a line, how many measures you want in a line. So let's say we want 4, but let's say for this example's sake, we want these 3 measures to be spaced into one line or broken into one line, system break. So what we do is we click on the measure that you want the system break to start. So we want the system break to start here. We want it to break at this point, the end of bar 3, and then we just simply press enter, and that's done. So we can go, if we want the next line to be 3 bars again, we just see those 3 bars, click on the 3rd bar, 3rd measure, press enter, and then just keep going like that. So we're going in 3-bar increments like that. Notice how some music has flowed onto the next page. We can also do page breaks though. So let's say we want 4 systems or 4 lines to a page. So what we do here is we click on the measure that we want the page break to start and we press Command and enter. Command, enter, and now we've got those 4 lines to a page. And on Windows it's Control enter. Okay? So once you've got those 2 shortcuts worked out, the system breaks, just press enter. The page breaks, Command and enter or Control enter for Windows. You can lay out your score nice and neat as you like. There is more subtlety than this. There's more advanced options where you can actually alter the margins and things like that. But I want to just stick to the basics here. So composing music has never been easier, and Musescore allows anyone to do it. You can even write for instruments that you can't play. I could write for the piano right now, or for an ensemble, string quartet, or a symphony orchestra. I only play guitar, but this notation software allows me to compose for those instruments or groups of instruments. But before doing that, becoming fluent at these basic shortcuts will take away the tedious time it can take to add notes and change rhythms and copy and paste. This stuff saves you hours in the long run, many, many, many hours. So I hope this video encourages you to get started at notating music, composing, arranging, harmonizing, or whatever creative musical adventure you choose.